Hello and welcome everybody to Footy Talk, a listener podcast. I'm James Graham. I'm joined by Connor Watson. How are you doing, Connor?
I'm good, James. How are you?
I'm very good. Also, GI, thanks for joining us again.
Yes. I had family emergency last week, so I had to duck off home. But everything's all good. Pop's on the mend. It's just, it's just getting that age now, and dementia's slowly creeping on pretty quickly. So, it's I had my kids down for school holidays, so I took them up there, see the grandparents. It was good.
Nice. On to all football matters. Last night, the Sharks absolutely pumped the Dragons 52 points to 16. What do you guys make of that? And we'll get into the Sharks in a moment, but where do the Dragons go? It's been a horrendous season.
Yeah, it has. It's just getting worse and worse for them down there. At one point last night, watching the game, when I think Terrell Sloan scored, thought maybe they're a chance of actually winning. And then next thing you know, I looked back at the footy, and in the space of 10 minutes, the Sharks had scored like 4 or 5 tries. But yeah, they were in some great form last night. It was good to see Big Siffer in the centres really show some of that dominant form that he showed last year. And yeah, it's tough. They're obviously gone through sort of a year from hell, the Dragons. Things have just gotten worse and worse. And yeah, I don't know where they go to from here. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them, over the next couple of weeks, and to sort of try and finish the year. Coaches moved on, and, when you have an interim coach, sort of, in a sense, as a player, you can feel like the club's put up the white flag. So, yeah, I don't know. Where do you think they go, Greggy?
Yeah, I'm not too sure where they'll go from here. Throughout the season, they showed parts and glimpses of the brand of footy they can play. They do have we keep talking about it, throughout the season. They got the squad, they got the players. It's just like those little key efforts that just let them down. Staying in the game for 80 minutes instead of staying in the game for 15 minutes in, here and there. And then, only a few players stick their hand up to play. I seen an interview that Jack DeVellin did last night, and you can hear and you can sense in him the disappointment of that game, and probably frustration where it's been for the last couple of weeks. But for the Dragons, all they can do now is go back and think about this week. It was Sharks dominated them from that second half. But I was like you, Connor. I watched the first, or probably the last 10 minutes of that first half, and I was like, Dragons might come out here and give them a go. But yeah, Sharks were just too good on the night.
That second half, they were just too good. I think, they've probably at a point now where they just need to try and enjoy their footy, hey, because it's all you can do.
Well, initially, Connor, when the pressure was off and Griffin was moved on, that immediate response, they had a really good performance and last-minute victory against the Roosters, and you kind of thought, we're going to see an exciting brand of football here. Once we see plenty of teams that when a coach gets moved on, the pressure valve gets released that little bit, and the whole joint just relaxes, and then they can play a brand of football. But in yesterday's game, I thought they actually started really well. Blake Lawrie off the kickoff absolutely belted Hamlin Uele. It was one of the shots of the season. He didn't come back on. He finished his first stint, but he didn't come back on. And then just before half time, they were repelling the Sharks, and they conceded just before half time. And I think honestly, after that, they almost gave up. I know Sloan had that moment where he scored, but that was a lucky try from a ball they'd allowed to bounce. But I think for the Dragons, does Flanagan need to come in and address the group now and start saying what he wants to see?
That's
because otherwise the next 2 months it's going to be you're just going to be stood behind your try line for 2 months.
Just counting down,
yeah,
until it's finished.
Just count down the weeks until finals footy kicks in. I'm not too sure. That's actually not a bad idea. Obviously he has to be let go by Manly over there. So
that's just saying what he wants to see. What does he actually want to see from this group? Yeah,
like I said, I actually don't mind that, Jimmy. Him going down there or he sends messages and that down. either way. But he even needs to jump on the front foot now, and let him know what the standards and what to expect throughout the preseason from day one when he arrives. And with all that saga going on, there's no doubt it's a distraction down there with with the Ben Hunt thing. But that's actually a good point. Like, does Flano send messages down to him while he's out?
I reckon he'd have to do it individually, hey, because Manly wouldn't let him address the group. Like,
I'm not sure the group. Maybe like key messages.
You'd be wanting to just ring the boys and being like, I want to see this, and this from you.
They've got to show a bit more resolve and a bit more pride in the jersey. Like some of the Sharks spine just had an absolute day out. They were in total control, and a lot of the tries that they scored were just through simple block plays, block for block for block, and they'd hit an edge back row and they'd score. And
just seemed like they were allowed to play.
Yeah.
There's no pressure on the Sharks halves yesterday watching.
No,
like, just dancing and
from the Dragons defense. It's like, we're back down here in our half now. We'll just let them go and we'll get our rest. But
it's a difficult predicament for them to be in when you've got your captain that has clearly expressed his desire to leave, but then there seems to be a bit of a leadership void because there was talk of, do we take the captaincy off Ben Hunt? But it's like, well, who'd you give it to? Like, if you look at the team, they won 17 yesterday. You're like, who's the leader? Like, Jack de Belin stands up each and every week, but last time he was murmured to be captain, there was outrage in the media. Probably Blake Laurie is one of the young leaders, but there does seem to be a bit of a leadership void there. I don't know whether you go, you look to develop Sullivan as a leader and perhaps give him a bit of a role there. I'm not too sure, but if the Dragons don't change some things, it's going to be a long couple of months. But onto the Sharks, great win for them. They had a awful time playing down in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago. They've bounced back from that with some convincing victories against the Bulldogs and the Dragons. But the question mark around the Sharks is their form against top 8 teams. So currently they've played 6, they've won 1 and lost 5. Bottom 8 teams, they've won 8 and lost 1. And I think it was a not too dissimilar sort of record last year, which propelled them into second place. Like, what do you think they do? So I've looked at their sort of run home. They're really unfortunate. They've already had their 3 buys as well, which isn't going to help. I think the buy schedule is something that NRL really need to look at. The fact that some teams have already had 3 and some teams have only had 1. Clearly advantages. So the Broncos, for instance, they've still got 2 up their sleeve. That's massive advantage to the Broncos. But the Sharks play the Warriors away, the Panthers away, Souths in Perth, the Cowboys away, and the Raiders at home in the last game. They're the top 8 teams. So I think they've got to look to earmark a couple of those away trips to get victories because they're going to have to go away. Yeah. Because I don't know if they'll finish top 4.
Yeah, it's who they have in the first 2 weeks of because they got knocked out straight sets. One
Cowboys,
Cowboys and South.
And then South, that's correct.
Look, they showed last night. They showed out going on from last year, and even like I just said, showed last night that they do have the capability of playing that brand of footy. Whether or not they'll be in the top 4, like you just said, they got to win those away games. Those away games are the important ones that they got to win. They can't just keep on relying on PointsBet Stadium and down in the Shire. So, but I just love the way Sharks bounced back, and the team rallied around. There was talk about Nico Hines and how they let him down in Melbourne, and I just loved how they stood up last night for him, whether it was for him or they just wanted to go back and play in their brand of footy. And we saw last night, but what? There's 2 players that I like to is their back rolls. Their back rolls go unnoticed, and what they do is like they just stick to the lines. They run their lines perfectly each and every week, and they just go under the radar. Like there's not too much been said about them. They track players. They can ball play, and then when you bring old Wadey Graham off the bench, well then he adds that sort of craft that he has as well and the skills. So
which he did last night.
yeah,
It was
he
awesome.
did. Look, I like the Sharkies' chances, but again, it's playing those top 4 teams
because they'd all be aware of that record, and I think they've got to start treating these teams these matches against the top 8 teams differently. So I think when they go to the Warriors, they've got to be. Fitzgibbon has got to be right. This is a finals mentality game.
Yeah,
I want to see what you're made of here. We're gonna treat this like a finals game. When we win 16-10. We're not looking to blow them off the park. We've just got to, obviously if opportunities present themselves, whatever. But I think there's a couple there. Warriors at South when they go to Perth treat that like a playoff game. Get some practice in.
Gritty wins.
Get some practice in. Take the 2 points on offer.
Yeah.
Defend our way to victory.
Different mindset.
Different mindset than a league game. Just treat it like a playoff game. I think that's the way that they can sort of get some practice in now. They're in a position they know they can score points against the lower teams, but that is a concern, and they'll need that record to improve if they're going to cement a spot in the 8, and then you don't want to be going into finals not having beaten some of those teams around you. Where the flip side, Melbourne have beaten everybody except I think the Raiders, who they haven't played yet. So that shows the difference in those two teams.
I think with the Sharks, what they've been talking about, and we said it on here before, is the lapses in defense. If they can fix that up, like they got to get those gritty wins, and you get those gritty wins, well then they got to get those lapses out of their games in defense, because they go for 10, 15 minutes of those lapses either before half time or straight after. So
it's just a concentration thing, isn't it? And you'd think with Fitzgibbon, who's such a defensive-minded coach, he set up the systems at the Roosters when they were really successful with defence. He'd be all over that. But it's an interesting couple of months for Sharks and their fans if they're going to progress and play to their full potential. With player movement, lads, there's a lot of topics, or it's been a hot topic rather. A lot of people are wondering what it's like actually changing clubs. GR, you've only done it
I only done it once. I was meant to go to Brisbane, but good old Rusty and Chocky Mundine rang me up to get me down to Sydney here. So, did I tell you this story?
Nah.
Well, we played the Bulldogs. This was when Brett Morley was playing. We played him in Adelaide. And we went over there, and I said after the game, I went up and asked Frank Panisi, who's a team manager at the time. I said, "Oh, mate, can I have a word with you on Craig?" And Frank goes, "Oh, what's it about?" I said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna look towards moving out of here and go back to Brisbane." And Frank goes, "Oh, mate, you better go ask Craig on your own on that one." So my nuts dropped.
Did you have to move back because of the cap?
Yeah, this is 2010. Well, I didn't have to move. I just felt like it was opportunity for me to go back home and back to Brisbane. But I remember it was in a hotel room.
That's not a good start.
Nah.
Is it? Like, that you're on your own. Like when your team manager goes, sorry.
Went and seen Craig, and Craig just looked at me and goes, nah. Just walked out the door, and
Didn't even entertain it.
Nah, and I don't think he even signed the papers for the transfer, so I don't think he still has.
Did you have years left on your contract?
And I was still down there until 2013, I believe it was.
And what year was that? 2010.
2010.
So how did it eventually? So Storm were off you going to Brisbane.
No, just Craig.
Oh, but was it just Brisbane they didn't want you to go, or?
No, I think Craig. The thing is with Craig and I, like, we got that sort of like a father's son, but more of a tough loving uncle than anything. So, you know that uncle that comes around and, it's like, oh, we're going to have fun, but you do as I tell you to do. But yeah, I don't think Craig still hasn't signed those papers. But
who signed them then, Frank?
I think Frankie and the board. But yeah,
Craig's
look,
just walking around. Going,
Yeah.
Craig's been away a while. Should get him back.
And anyway, I went up to Brisbane, went and did actually I was in there doing physio and all that there stuff, and then Rusty rings up And first it was Chock Mundine rings me and goes, "Oh, I come down to South," and I was like, "No, I'm not that keen on it. Not that keen on coming to Sydney." At this same time, JT rang me up, Johnny Thurston, and asked me to go up there and be his number 6. And this is when I was a bit lighter. This is when I was lighter and skinnier.
That would have been
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah. And I said, nah, it's too hot. and it was too hot. And they had Billy Johnson, the trainer, up there at the time, and he was ruthless, man. Old school boxing coach. He was at the Dogs for a bit before he went up there as trainer. I had him in Origin camp, and yeah, I was getting no good. Those 3 weeks of that period of Origin, it was hell for me, from him. And then Chock goes, "Oh yeah, Rusty's going to ring you up." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he's like, I think he was talking shit. And he rings me up. He goes, "Hey," he puts his Russell Crowe voice on, and he goes, "Hey, it's Russell Crowe here." And I said, "Bullshit," hung up. I said, this is a lie. Rang back second time, hung up again. I said, "Mate, stop prank calling me." It's like, I don't want to hear it. Chock rings me back and goes, "Oh, bro, you better answer that phone. It is Russell." I said, "Nah." So rings me up the third time, and I go, "All right." Flew me down here to Sydney to show me around, and people think that these big A-list celebrities buy clubs just for the fame and that. But Russell, my deals with Russell, he just loves the club. He loves the league, and I could see that and hear it in his voice. Not his gladiator voice, but his normal voice. Anyway, so yeah, he's got me around here. Stayed down here for about a week or two, and then went back to Brisbane. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to head down here." At this time, I didn't sign a contract or any paperwork with Brisbane, and ended up being at South and stayed there. So yeah, that's my little transferring window. That one, Craig didn't sign the papers. 2, I didn't sign any papers with Brisbane, and 3, I end up here at South. But yeah, hung up on Russell twice.
Not many people can say that.
No. They can't. Yeah. Just brushing Russell Crowe. I've got a great idea for if you want to disrupt South Sydney's season, get a deep fake Russell Crowe. You can type in, through AI. Call Latrell Mitchell and just play Russell Crowe's voice, just saying, like, slagging off Latrell, saying, like, "Mate, you're done here, like, you're gone." Like, call Cookie up as well, pretending to be Russell Crowe. Mate, you could just disrupt South Sydney's season. Like,
you want me to do this? Is that what you're saying?
There's one of the cons to having a celebrity owner, so you can get deep fake access to their voices, where, the people that own all the other football clubs, you wouldn't be able to get deep fakes. So
rich people.
Yeah, how about you? Yeah, just deep fakes of random rich people. Connor, how about you? How's your experience been when you've switched clubs?
Yeah, so when I moved first time to Newcastle, it was pretty, I was really young, so I can't really remember it, but I remember, like, the Roosters originally, they didn't want me to go, and then eventually they let me go. And I think that was the year that Cooper Cronk came, so maybe they had an inkling that Cooper Cronk was coming, so they're like, "You can,
see ya.
You can go." But the one when I moved from Newcastle back to the Roosters was actually hard. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. I think, firstly, we're in the bubble, so I was living with all the Knights boys, and then the Roosters were also living in the same resort as us. Wow. So that was initially weird, but then not having, like, any family or friends away from footy to actually talk to in person about it was really hard as well. So just, like, calling everyone, trying to get advice, and then, you'd be talking about potentially leaving the Knights, and you'd walk out and you'd see, like, Denny Badiris and, like, Adam, and they're like, "Mate, what's going on? Are we getting this contract sorted?" Yeah, it was a tough sort of, like, period there, just trying to really make the right decision, and yeah, just thinking a lot about it, and then, like, couldn't really, go and talk to, like, because me and Kalen lived together, but I couldn't really go and, like, confide in him and be like, "Mate, I'm thinking about sort of leaving," and get, like, a opinion where he didn't want me to stay, So that was sort of tough. And then I think I knew when it was going to happen, but then the club, then I played my 100th game, and the club the Knights had sort of done like this big celebration for my 100th game, and like,
it
was really weird because in my head I knew like a week later I was about to tell everyone that was doing such a great job of like celebrating my 100th game that I was leaving. So it was a really weird place, and then
awkward.
It was awkward. It was awkward, and then so once I knew, I sort of went and grabbed Adzi in the morning, told him, and then had to basically get all the leadership boys in and tell them that, I was going to go. But I mean, like the difference, I remember sort of like leaving the Roosters, I didn't have to say anything to anyone, but Adzi had like a sort of thing in Newcastle, like whether you were re-signing or you were leaving, you had to get up in front and tell the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was like, so I had to then tell the whole club, but it was helped by that same day Josh King had signed with the Storm. So we both got up together. And we're like, I'm sorry, boys, I'm going to the Roosters. Like,
sorry,
love
boys, I'm going to Storm.
Yeah. And then he did the same thing. So it made me feel a little bit less.
It's
like
such
a dog. Yeah.
It's such a weird thing, isn't it? Because you spend more time with these people than you do your own family. Like, you're in the trenches with them. You get to know these people inside out. And then, like, all of a sudden it just stops. It's over.
Yeah.
And like you do keep in touch with, one or two, but you go from like sharing everything to then you see them around, and it's like you get a new group of mates, and it's
sharing ice baths, showers,
and
like, then
coffees every day.
Yeah, just general chit chat. Like it's just life, isn't it? But
get your morning routine, your morning car rides, and then it's like, sorry boys, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out. And you move on,
and you're living in the same resort.
Yeah, literally living in the same resort. So I remember
that would have been hilarious. Trying to do like a private phone call, like living with the with all the players, just being like, what are you doing over there? Because it just looked. I reckon you'd try and hide it, but it would look so obvious.
100%.
It's obvious who you're
they
talking.
knew, they knew what I was up to, and like, I went over and had like a meeting with Robbo one day, and because like he had where he was staying, sort of a lounge room and stuff, and like we just sat down and chatted about it, and then I remember getting a call off someone, and they're like, someone seen you going over to chat to Robbo, and I was like, oh God. Like, it was just the weirdest thing. After that, I was like, mate, I'm going to have to walk around with a hoodie on if I'm going to chat to people.
It's bad when there's, like, speculation around your potential movement and having to, like...
The whispers
goes
on.
Almost like the elephant in the room, and you're like, everyone knows.
And everyone's looking at
me. And everyone's like, can you just let us know? When I left the Bulldogs, I hadn't told everyone yet, but it was pretty obvious I was going. I was being forced out, but then, when I told that it was, I wasn't going to say anything official till I'd signed. So I'd signed at the Dragons. Played my last game for the Bulldogs was against the Dragons, and actually knocked them out of playoffs, which was weird. And then, we're about to go on Mad Monday, but before we finished the season, Des invited me up as captain to address the group and explain the news, and oh man, I was like a waterworks. I could see, like, I can remember looking at the gear steward Fred Serraldo, and he went first, and I was like, oh Fred, you can't do that. Like he started to like cry, and I was like, whoa, you can't do that. Like, mate, I'm gone now. Like I'm gone.
I'm committed.
Of course, like. So he's going, and I'm like, I'm just letting everyone. Like,
wasn't there speculations before that there? Circling us around.
With
you,
there was
speculation.
The
media and that.
We were talking about it the other week.
Yeah,
didn't we?
Well, I was going to the Dragons before I even knew I was going to the Dragons. But,
that's right.
It was, and it was being talked about, but I didn't want to say anything until it was official. And I think I told a couple of teammates that I was closer to. Personally, before I announced it, I think that was at the captain's run the day before. But waited till after the game to address the group. But I'll never forget seeing Fred Serraldo. He started to go, and I was like, mate, you You set me
Can't
off
do
now,
that.
mate. You can't go first. Like, and then there's lots of hugs, and then it's weird because you're with those people for so long. Your first day of preseason, it's different, and then it's a whole new group of friends, isn't it? But
so with that, there you like I was saying with me, I had a chat with really close mates of mine down in Melbourne when I told them that, and you said that you did too. Did you, or you just couldn't at that time?
No.
Like you just said with KP, even though you're living with him, you couldn't actually go tell him about it. And you couldn't reach out, so was you talking like the family members, your partner?
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to like my mum, dad, brother, and then sort of the guy who was helping me do the deal. And then just like some different mentors that I had were giving me advice. But I can remember I telling the boys, because this is when we were doing the 257 podcast. It was like me, Kalen, and Matt Croker, and we just recorded an episode, and I'd made up my mind. And then I was like, "Oh, boys, I need to tell you something." It was like, so we're in my room, and then told them, and we just all like sat there for an hour, and no one really said anything. It was so weird. Yeah, we're all just like, they're like, "Oh, shit."
Yeah, that whole
sorry, boys.
That whole experience for you must have been shit.
Yeah,
awful, awkward.
Well, I just felt really isolated because I knew the decision that I was going to make, but then I was living with these people, and like Danny Badeiras is one of the world's best blokes.
Yeah.
And he was living 2 doors up. Like I was so tight with like beds, and his family was there, and like going around there and having a cup of tea every night, like all of these things. And he's like, "Mate, we want you to stay." And then telling him was hard. Telling Adzi was hard because I loved playing under Adzi, and it was just weird because I didn't have the proper like personal. Yeah, physical support.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's weird? Just that's made jog my memory a little bit of when teammates have told me that they're going, and it just being like, "Oh no!" Like, what do you mean? Like, I remember Gareth Widdop in particular. Me and him were really close, and I kind of knew it was coming, but I was like really adamant, like trying to get him to stay. I was like, "Guys, I think you should stay." I think you're making a mistake. Like, I was telling him how rubbish England is. Like, mate, you can't go. And he was like, "Oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah." And he didn't tell me before he told the group. And then we finished the training session. And Mary McGregor's just gone, "Oh, lads, Gaz Widdop just wants to speak to you." And I've seen Gaz like sort of start to choke, and I've just gone, "Oh no!" Like I've just been like, I've like just gone. This is like
not having
like
it.
I'm dead. I'm like heads like not sad, like just gutted that he's going.
Yeah,
like I can't believe it. Like I was devastated.
Yeah.
Absolutely gutted that he was going.
My one that's stuck in my mind is Jason Clark, when he said that South didn't want him, and they couldn't re-sign him, so he went overseas and played. Man, I was a bit like that there, going, no, this ain't happening. This is
denial.
This is not happening. This can't happen.
Yeah,
like one of the nicest guys you'll ever come across. Like, but it's like, nah, not happening. Not having this here. It's wrong. It's wrong. Yeah. You can't do this to him.
Yeah, it's funny the emotion.
Sign a petition.
Yeah, it is crazy that emotional attachment that you have for others. I think the more that you're in the game, the more you become accustomed to it. So when the coach says this player wants to speak to the group, you're like, "Oh no!" And then sometimes you might be like, someone that you don't like. I'm not gonna mention any names, but a certain player was like, "Oh, I just want to address the group." You're like,
"Want me to open the door?"
Yes,
I'll open the door.
Do you want me to book you an Uber? Now we've got a new segment of the show. We've got some questions from our listeners. I've got one first to Connor from Kate Disher. When will you be back playing? We need you.
Ooh, I feel like I get asked this every day. Different people, I see them.
Well, Kate Disher wants to know, so.
Yeah. Kate, I don't actually know at the moment. I was, like, initially, I'd spoke to you guys about this. I was hoping for around 23 thinking that, this was just going to be a black and white 6-month sort of recovery. And then as I've progressed more and more, I've started to realize that, it's not very, like, my tendon will be sweet at 6 months. So that is fine. But it's just the rest of, like, my leg, keeping it straight for 8 weeks, the muscle atrophy. So trying to get the strength back, and then the swelling that just comes with getting your knee used to the load and stuff again. So over the last couple of weeks, I've been speaking to some people who have done the same injury, like Matt Ikuvalu was one at Cronulla, and Izzy Parisi from the Waratahs Wallabies played at Brisbane a couple of years ago, and like Braden Burns did his as well a couple of years. I think he was at South when he did his. And like, just the timelines from all these guys are varying, like Matt was back in around 7 months, Izzy was around 8, and then Braden was like 11 months. So they took ages with his. So yeah, it's not really like a clear-cut date, which I had set because I'd been told that, 6 months your tendon will be fine to play. So that's when I was hoping to, which is sort of around 20, but I don't think I'm going to be back in round 20. I think it'll be more, a little bit later than that, but I'm still, like, the plan is to be back this year and get back before the finals. So I can't actually give you a clear date, which is frustrating for me as well as, like, for other people that are asking, because I want to know when I'm back. Like, I want to be back, but it's just not the way it is.
You want a finish line?
Yes.
And mate, the advantage of having a finish line is so good psychologically, and the frustrating side for you, Connor, is you don't have that yet, and it's difficult to not have something to aim for. Yeah. Like, the aim is general full recovery, but there's no timeline, which is incredibly frustrating for you.
Yeah. Like, obviously Ryan Pappenhausen's like a really exaggerated example of it. His knee is like, that would be so hard for him because he's now 11 going on 12 months, like going on a year for when he's done his, and he's just sort of working to no timeline. It's about getting the strength back in my quad, which I think he's sort of going through the same thing. So
I gave myself a deadline for 7 months, and coming to 6 months, I was like, almost be ready to play. And then before 7 months hit, it just went back like almost a month and a half. So, they're just the injuries that you take for granted, It's that type of injury where you just, even though it's your lower legs and it's your knee, that's where your most loads go. Yeah. So, everything happens around the knee, and you just got to take your time with it. Don't do what I did and try and rush back because, it will happen. It was just be patient with it.
Yeah.
All right, you two have got some questions as well.
I got one for you, Greggy, from Martin G. Did you always think Billy would be the one from the big three to go into coaching and kill it?
Yep.
It's a great question.
Yep. Without a doubt. Wouldn't have crossed my mind. I think what helped Bill was early in his career, he was out with a groin injury, I think. I think he had two groin ops, and what he did then was he went into video to keep his mind busy. He went and did video with Craig, went and did video with the coaches, just did his homework, and it's obviously paid off because it's not like he can read a game or anything at fullback. But I think with Bill, after that game one, I know for certain he would have been sitting in the shed with his notebook thinking how can they improve. Even though they won game one, he would have been sitting there writing down in his notes, how can they improve for game two? That's just the way Billy is. And, people talk about being professional and being prepared and everything like that. He takes that to the next level. He takes that, like, he's looking for that smallest of margins, how to improve. And, his game speaks for himself, the way he played the game. I don't think too many kickers, doesn't matter how good kicker you are, can get past Bill or, he'll catch it on the full. So he just knew if it goes this way, he may kick it off his right, may kick it off his left. If there's a broken play, well then, he's already there in defensive line. So no, I knew some way if he wanted to go in coaching, he would be the one. I think the others would, like Cooper and Cam, I think they're more of a specialist coaches, with Cam being in the forwards and Cooper around the halves and that team giving them cues how to improve their game. But with Bill, he looks at the overall because he understands what a left or a winger or centre should be doing, and where he wants his back rolls on a shape, and he just pushes them around, directs them. But yeah, it's I'd like I said, if Bill was going coaching, which he is, he would have been the one.
How about you, Greggy? What questions have you got for us?
This is for you, Jimmy, from Ben Rigney. So you've achieved so much in the game. If you play at Origin, are you New South Wales?
I'm no one, because I'm English. Couldn't play for either.
Couldn't play for either?
No.
But if you did, if you was to choose...
You don't care?
Well, it'd depend where I was born or grew up. Actually, or does it, Greg?
No, it doesn't. No, of course it doesn't. Of course it does. If you was playing, all right, say WA, you're born in WA, and you had the opportunity to come over here and play, and they gave you what they did to me, a piece of paper, and they say tick one.
Oh, that's a great question.
Sorry, Benny. Just went a bit left centre there. Left field.
Yeah, I'd probably go New South Wales because that's who I.
That's all you know.
It's where I live now, and probably I don't know. I've got no real rationale for. There's no real explanation.
I can tell that you haven't given much thought to it.
No. No. As long as I could still play for England, I probably wouldn't care. Give me $30,000 a game. Be a mercenary. Whoever the highest bidder is. Right. All right. Okay, we can get you over the line with slab of 4X or slab of VB. Okay, yeah, we're on.
What would you rather, 4X or VB?
Ooh.
4X.
Yeah, probably 4X.
Same.
Yeah. Any more questions?
I've got actually one more.
All right.
It's for myself though.
Oh, okay.
So it's from Luke Playdon. And it's, would you rather tackle GI in his prime or Jim at his angry best running off the back fence?
Mate.
That's a good question.
That's an easy question.
Yeah. I actually was speaking to, I can't remember who it was the other day, but we're talking about you, Greggy, back when you first came to South. Someone who would have been playing against you. And just like how hard it was to tackle you. Sorry, Jim, I've got to go with Greggy.
Mate.
I'll just...
Oh, no, you'd rather tackle me.
Yeah, I'd rather tackle you.
100%. Mate, what a stupid question that is. Like, are you actually joking? Like, this guy.
Yeah.
Like...
Spiders.
Nah. Just played the game.
Yeah, I know.
I know that's what you
tackled.
did.
I know that's what you did. You did it very well.
Back home, we used to play on the front yard. And sometimes we'll go onto the road. So there was a couple of scars. I think when I played, I think the road got back into my mind. I was like, hey, I'm not getting touched.
Mate, that's a great mentality to have. Well, I reckon that just about wraps us up. So thanks everybody for listening to Footy Talk. We'll catch you next week.